Hello everyone, it's Jack Cotton, #1 best-selling author of Selling Luxury Homes and luxury real estate expert, here in our next to last installment of The Power of Story, as we use stories to connect, to succeed with, and to improve our business in luxury real estate. We've learned how stories help us connect and differentiate ourselves from our competition. That's a prime use of stories in luxury real estate. Understand though that a story in isolation all by itself is not going to work. You know, if you go to the theater, the show, the play is an overall story. That within the play there are little stories called vignettes that relate to the story and enhance the story and become a part of the overall story. Well, it's the same way in our sales process. The stories we use in the different sections of our listing process or buyer counseling process or showing process all have to relate to the overall process of our business as a luxury real estate expert. So they have to be a part of the process, they have to apply, and the stories have to be packaged and delivered in such a way that they make sense, that they relate, that they're not in isolation, but they're relevant to what you're trying to get done. Understand it's just like in a theater or a movie, the stories really have three parts. There's always a villain, there's always the hero, and there's always an ending or conclusion. Well, the villain, in our case, of telling stories in luxury real estate, oftentimes, when we're not talking about the stories that deal with our property, when we're talking about stories that deal with process, the villain is the market. The villain is the attitude of buyers who want to get value that's more than compelling in the market that exists today. That rates are, or availability of money is the villain. These are the villains. The hero, that's great. The hero is us. We always have to be the hero of the story. We have to be the one who meets the villain, who conquers the villain, who heads off the villain, and brings the seller or the buyer to part 3 of the story, which is the ending, which is a great ending, which is, of course, the highest price or the best property they could find in a given period of time in your particular market. Or a sale with no aggravation, or perhaps the best buyer for a property who's going to be a steward of the property going forward, who's not going to develop it, for example, who's not going to tear a property down, for example, who's going to keep it intact and keep it as it once was. So stories are an integral part of our success, and we can use them in all parts of the process, like I said. For example, dealing with commission objections. Now, I could do a whole series of videos on dealing with commission objections because we see it all the time in the high end, and I get lots and lots of commission objections all the time. But I don't know if it's my old age or my nearly 4 decades in real estate business, but now I just tell a story, and I find it to be a very effective way to illustrate the power of my value and using a story to illustrate that. And the story I tell is this. Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I remember my first NAR real estate convention. I can't remember how long ago it was because it was a real long time ago, but it was in New Orleans. And I was walking towards the convention center, and a guy stopped me on the side of the road and said, "Hey, sir, would you like to get a shoe shine?" Now, I was excited about that because there's nothing more than I like getting my shoe shine, especially when my feet are in the shoes. So I said, absolutely. I put my foot up on that little thing, and he went to work. He said, "By the way, would you like the $4 shine or the $6 shine?" And I said, "What's the difference?" He said, "My enthusiasm." So sellers get a little chuckle when I tell that story, but I ended by saying, don't you understand, don't you see the benefit of having the complete and unbridled enthusiasm of other buyer brokers in our marketplace? We need an enthusiastic market to get you the highest price in the market that we find ourselves in today. So a story there helps me overcommission in a funny way and in a enlightening way, in a way that most people can relate to. We also have many people ask me all the time about the big O. The big O, that's the objection you get when you're breaking into luxury real estate, which is, how many properties have you sold in my area? How many properties have you listed over $1 million and sold? What is your track record in luxury real estate? And if you're just starting, you don't have a track record. So the best way to overcome this objection is, again, to use a story. And you can actually use the word story in your story by saying, "Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I'm here today to create my luxury story, to create my brand, to create my track record. And I want your property, I want you to be part of my story. I want you to be so happy with the work I do. I'm going to focus all my attention on getting your property sold for the highest price in the shortest amount of time. I'm not going to do any other listings in the high end until your property has an accepted offer on it. I want the story of the sale of your property to be so compelling, to be so successful, to make you so happy that you can't wait to tell my story in the form of referrals to your friends, relatives, and associates." We can also use stories to overcome pricing objections, any objection for that matter. Just think of the stories of your own or other stories that you hear from other agents in your office and your marketplace that you can use to overcome these little bumps along the process, among the sales process. So anyway, we're going to conclude next time with our summary of everything we learned about stories and the power of stories. But until that time, I want to remind you one more time that we're getting close to the end of the year, and I'm probably going to end my offer of free coaching sessions for every single person who buys my book, Selling Luxury Homes. I've enjoyed these. I learned a ton. But if you bought the book, whether from me or from Amazon or Kindle, whatever, just send me an email. I'll send you the form. We'll do the call. It's a great thing to do before you go on a listing presentation, and we will get your most burning, pressing, urgent luxury real estate question answered. But until then, until next time, make it a great week.